Good morning, everyone. Welcome to this food safety conversation on World Standards Day. And we will be talking about standards help in ensuring food safety. This is part of our monthly conversation that we conduct to increase the food safety awareness within the industry. While standards may seem long, boring, tedious, but they are vital in ensuring consistency and safety towards the food that we produce for our consumers. In the world of food, the most relevant ones are the ones relating to the food safety management system. And we all know is the backbone for all of them. Built on it are various different management systems like our ISO 22000, FSSC, BRC, IFS, SQF, FSMA, and many more country-specific food safety management systems. Which one you pick is really your choice. But all of them require a rigor and discipline, and what is there where they bring the real values. We will start with the introduction of our panelists today. Today we have with us Sir Anil Johri, who comes with 41 years of experience in quality standards, certification, accreditation, having worked as CEO of NABCB, which is a constituent of QCI and NABCB for the certification and inspection. Worked earlier with BIS and EIC. During his tenure with NABCB, he helped in securing a number of international equivalences for product certification, inspection, various management systems like food safety, your GMP, GHP, HACCP, your information security, and others. He has been instrumental in supporting regulators like FSSAI, CDSCO, BE, etc. After retirement, he refuses to slow down and continues his crusade as an evaluator for APAC and IAF. He is also nationally and internationally recognized expert, has worked with UNFIT, UNIDO, FAO, and APO. He writes extensively on standards-related issues and provides expertise to various ministries whenever needed. We are privileged to have you with us today, sir. Welcome, sir. You're on mute.
Yeah,
sir.
thank you very much. I'm very glad to be here.
Welcome, sir. Next, we have with us Mr. Benz Thomas. Benz is the South Asia Pacific Region Head for BRCGS, earlier known as BRC Global Standards, a leading brand and consumer protection organization used by over 30,000 certificated suppliers over 130 countries. He's responsible for companies' operations in the South Asian region and Australia, New Zealand. In the last 5 years, he has built an in-depth insight of Indian market, its unique challenges, collecting feedback from certified sites and prospects. Prior to BRCGS, Benz led the food division at SGS India Private Limited, working in different capacities for more than half a decade. He headed the food vertical and also led the sustainability initiative of the organization. Benz has worked across several industries, including IT and manufacturing companies like Mahindra, Satyam, SAIL, Stop as well. Welcome, Benz.
Thank you so much, Sarika.
Welcome. Finally, we were expected to have Dr. Kinney, but I think the last moment emergency that he had, so he couldn't make it for the program. Dr. Sneha is a VP, is here with us representing Botanica. Thank you, Sneha, for filling up at the last moment. Sneha heads the key accounts for Botanic Healthcare Private Limited. Dr. Sneha has a bachelor's in Ayurveda, medicine and surgery, and also was a practicing doctor in Ayurveda for a short time. Botanic Healthcare is a global leader in developing and manufacturing plant-derived active principles for complementary health medicine, pharmaceuticals, health food, and personal care industries. They integrate traditional knowledge with modern science to create a path-breaking approach to natural health ingredients, where having all the systems, processes, and also ensuring sustainability is something that is ingrained in the culture. Welcome, Dr. Sneha.
Thank you.
So let's start hearing our panel. We have an excellent panel today. Thoughts on how standards ensure food safety. We will start with Anil, sir. Sir, in your 40 years in this space, you have seen the standards evolve, and how are they perceived by the industry? Your thoughts on that, sir? You're on mute, sir.
Thanks, Sarika. Well, over 40 years, I think some of things are pretty obvious by names itself. We had a Prevention of Food Adulteration Act. So as the name indicated, adulteration was our issue. And some of us would remember the animal tallow scandal in Vanaspati way back in 80s. And now we have a Food Safety and Standards Authority, or an act. So the switch from adulteration to safety is reflected in the change in name of our act itself, which is one evolution. The other evolution that I see over the years, the last 40 years, is that while food is, we all understand, food is a highly regulated sector. All world over, there are regulations. The rise of voluntary standards, I prefer to call them voluntary standards rather than private standards, because not all voluntary standards are private. So the rise of voluntary standards in the global market, and sometimes one might wonder, well, why do we need voluntary standards? Then there are regulations, and as stringent as US FDA has or European Commission has. But you know, it's the way the market is, and whether we like them or not, this is the reality of the market. So that is the first thing that I think industry needs to understand, that while regulations, they have no choice. They have to comply if they want to access a particular market, whether it's Indian or elsewhere, or even a small country like Nepal or Bhutan. Voluntary standards, they do have a choice to not adopt and lose that client, a customer. This is a customer-based certification that is being demanded. So that is something which I think we should understand with as industry. And as you pointed out yourself in your opening remarks, one needs to put great thought into what kind of voluntary standards, while as far as regulations are concerned, there is no choice but to comply. But what kind of voluntary standards one should pick to further his business, because there are multiple markets, multiple standards, and multiple certifications. So that's really, to me, for industry, that would really be the crux of the matter. How do they pick up what standards to comply with to further their business? So I would say that's, to me, the rise of private or voluntary standards has been the biggest change over last 40 years, apart from the fact that in India, we changed from adulteration to food safety.
Right. So basically, customer is the king, right? So customer drives what type of voluntary standard, basically, as a FPO or as a company, you want
Yes.
to take it up and then drive it through, right?
Yes,
Definitely,
that's right.
yes. From PFA, from adulteration, coming towards getting consumer awareness, or getting the companies making sure food safety is something which is critical, is a paradigm shift, I would say, you know, from where we come from the adulteration to the food safety, which is pretty, we are at a nascent stage in India, though, you know, compared to other countries. Yeah, that's
right.
That's
yes.
a great insight. So, yeah, thank you for sharing your thoughts. Now, coming to more on a food specific, the voluntary standards that we have, which Benz leads it. So Benz, your experience with standards in the food industry in general, what do you have to say there?
Sure. Recently, the Netherlands Food and Consumer Product Safety Authority, which is the equivalent of the FSSAI, published a report on the interplay of regulations and voluntary standards. What they did was they monitored GFSI certified sites over a period of 5 years between 2015 and 2020. 15,000 inspections were conducted by the food authority there, out of which 900 were certified to BRCGS standards. And what they kind of concluded was that third-party sites overall performed much, much better than the non-performing or the non-certified sites, rather. That's the number one conclusion that they drew out of this 5-year study. The other thing that they said, which works, which I will definitely point out here, is that businesses that were certified to the BRCGS food standard performed much better and reported much lesser non-conformance with respect to the regulations that were there compared to other standards and non-certified sites. So that, I would say, is the biggest benefit of being on a standard, is A, cutting down on the number of compliances needed, B, is being better than what others are doing in the market. And that is what actually would, like you mentioned, that customer is king. And but what we also need to understand is there's an intersection where consumers are demanding much more than just a good product at a fair price. They're demanding safety, they're demanding nutrition, etc. And standards basically help you kind of do that. And the regulator, essentially, the Netherlands regulator essentially concluded that operating to standards kind of leads to better outcome and consumer protection. And that's what the crux of that is. Another one that I would like to quote here is IFC doing which is a World Bank member, doing a report on the New Zealand producers adopting certification, and which essentially showed that adopting a certification, and like Mr. Jory mentioned, the voluntary standards kind of enables you to access the market much better. So that's what this thing helps. But closer to what we do, we've gone back and spoken to a lot of sites to understand, who are certified to BRCGS, to kind of understand what are the benefits that they're getting out of it. So just to quote a few of them, and the benefits are varied. I'll just quote a few of them here. Tathui Foods in Singapore talks about how it helped them understand food traceability, help them streamline processes, etc. Swani Spices in India again talks about better traceability that standards have given them, especially BRCGS, and a better handle on their supply chain management. They've also come back to us and said that because of wanting to go in for a BRCGS standard and wanting to improve, they've had to change their flow plans, something as basic as a flow plan. But then that led to better process control, reduction in complaints, and lesser reworking of products. So that is what I would say is the biggest benefit of being certified to a standard. The other one, of course, standards. When a auditor is on site, they will definitely spend a lot of time on the floor doing the audit, and that is where is the best chance for a organization to kind of take out most from that auditor's experience and get them to look at the non-conformances that they're seeing and kind of work on improving them. So those would be my opening thoughts.
Great. So I think definitely consumer demand has grown further. They want more transparency. And as a FBO, definitely every FBO, because we are no more local, right? We have gone global. And going global, the traceability is the key. And as you mentioned, Ben, saying like introducing these standards into your systems, protocols, definitely helps you to, reduce the rework, the recalls, and all of those. That's quite insightful. So I'm sure we'll get a lot of more insights. Moving now to the implementer out here, right? So Dr. Sneha, you as a manufacturer, you have really been a forefront of implementing standards at your plant. What has been, so I was looking at your website and looking at your, all the portfolio that you guys have. You have, I think you name it and you have the standards. You have GMP, you have HACCP, BRC, FSS, everything, right? So organic, halal, all of those. So what has been your motivation behind implementing these various standards?
The main motivation behind implementing the standards is our customers. For us, our customer is the king, as Mr. Vance Thomas has also told. And we have a very customer-driven strategy. And we are very attentive to the needs and feedback of our clients. So GFSI requirement was one of the main customer requirements, which was put forward because in front of the sales and the marketing team also by the customers. And we choose BRCGS because of its very highly reputable status, and it covers the HACCP also in that. And it has the BRCGS standards, making botanic healthcare as a BRCGS standard for food safety. It has helped us meet the requirements of our clients and meet their expectations of a quality control also. And it has given the customers a sense of ease and confidence in our manufacturing processes, what we do in our manufacturing plants. And it has also attracted the major companies across the world because of the higher standard requirements of which the other companies across the world has. So for us, it has been a very good, in a very good way. The BRCGS standard has given a very good confidence to our customers in our food safety programs, and we have got a very good positive feedback from our customers. We export to more than 75 countries across the world. So BRCGS standard has expanded our marketing and our horizon of botanic healthcare.
Yeah, great to hear that, Sneha, saying like you guys do supply to 75 different countries. Definitely, having those systems protocols at your facility, the worldwide, infrastructure that you guys have, right? So now getting into a little more specifics, there is a lot of discussion about the authenticity of the implementation and the certification. On that, sir, Anil sir, how does a business ensure that there is authenticity to the certification that they are getting?
Well, that's a very, I would say, should be a very hot topic for everybody, because I am sorry to say this, but Indian market is full of unauthentic certificates. This is the term I use. I don't say they're fraud or fake or whatever. I simply say unauthentic for the simple reason that legally anybody can certify in India, and there's no bar. On tomorrow, I can set up a certification body and start issuing ISO 22000 certificates. There's no bar legally. I'm not doing anything illegal. But the problem is my certificate credible? Am I following the protocols which are expected to be followed? All these, unfortunately, are voluntary. Following ISO 17021 as a certification body to certify ISO 22000 or to certify FSSC, or following ISO 17065 to certify BRC or other standards, other certificates, other standards, is all voluntary. So what is the way industry would get to know that this is an authentic certificate by a certification body which follows all the standard norms? The only way right now seems to be having an accredited certification. So we have accreditation bodies around the world. We have NABCB in India, of which I was CEO for 6.5 years. Again, that's a voluntary system. So there's no obligation for me as a certification body to go to NABCB and get accredited, or to go to any accreditation body and get accredited. So there is another problem. Then, of course, within NABCB is part of an international system, which works very well in certain ways. IAF is the international body, International Accreditation Forum. There are regional bodies. We fall under Asia Pacific region, so it's called Asia Pacific Accreditation Cooperation. Europe has another one. Two Americas, North and South, have another one. There is African Accreditation Cooperation, and there is something called Arab Accreditation Cooperation. So these are the 5 regional bodies. And physically, IAF evaluates these regional bodies once in 4 years, physically. And these regional bodies evaluate individual accreditation bodies within their jurisdictions once in 4 years. So NABCB underwent an evaluation in 2020, the last one. I am myself an APAC peer evaluator as well as an IF evaluator. Right now, I am in 2 IF evaluations, evaluating 2 different regions. So like they say, in God we trust, rest all have to show evidence. This is a perfect example of that system. I mean, I remember 2014, I was sitting in Mexico. I was on behalf of, at that time it was called PAC, not APAC, because APLAC and PAC were two separate bodies. They have merged into one now. So there was this interesting situation where the accreditation body of Mexico was assessing a certification body in our presence. So these were on the opposite side of the table. Mexican accreditation body on one side and the certification body on the other side. And next to the Mexican accreditation body, I was sitting, observing the Mexican accreditation body, how it is doing. And next to me was sitting an IF, in fact, the IF chair of the time, who was observing me, how I am doing my job. So that is a perfect example of everybody being evaluated. But the problem is that a lot of certification bodies have come up in India who are either not accredited. Lot of accreditation bodies have come up also worldwide, not only India. In fact, Indians have a fascination for a European address or a US address. So you will find a lot of accreditation bodies which show their address somewhere in UK or in Europe or in US. Whether they exist or not, we don't know. But the claim would be that we are accredited by G-Lab or somebody, all kinds of names. And if you go to the IF website, you won't find them listed there. So outside IF system, there's a whole lot of, problem of certificates. So I keep writing on risk of unauthentic certificates, which industry should know. Lots of industry get duped. So that is one problem. Certification bodies which are not part of the international system, which are outside the international system, issuing unaccredited or so-called accredited certificates which have no value. Second problem, less to the lesser extent, is since HACCP was so popular, people started to certify to HACCP certification. What is called HACCP certification? Certification has to be against an auditable standard. Now, Codex is a guidance standard. We all know. So in our terminology, Codex standard is not amenable for audit and certification. You ought to have a requirement standard, what we call a requirement standard, written down clearly as requirements. So we tried to, help the Indian market by bringing out an India as a standard, which is in QCI. If you can go to the website of QCI, you'll find there is an India as a standard. And I remember in my time in NABCB, twice it happened that a very reputed certification body, I'll not name it for obvious reasons, issued HACCP certificates to the exporters. And when those exporters presented it in some countries, the regulator of that country was wise enough to ask, these are not accredited. Please go back to your accreditation body, which is NABCB, and get them to endorse these certificates. And obviously, we couldn't endorse the certificate because they were against no recognized standards. They were claiming to be against Codex HACCP, which cannot be accredited. So that's another problem. I mean, we have some common standards like risk management. I mean, although it may not pertain to food safety, risk management ISO 31000. People issuing certificates against ISO 31000, which is, to me, is immoral for certification bodies to issue certificates. To that extent, I appreciate the private scheme owner like BRCGS. They have far more control over their certificates, and it's good to have at least scheme owners who are controlling the certificates. The only problem I see always is as far as voluntary standards are concerned or private standards are concerned. At least the regulators in India, they don't like. They think this is some kind of competition to them. I mean, they need to change and think that voluntary standards actually are a support to the regulators. They ensure better compliance, and I mean, after all, it's a market demand. So why am I, as a regulator, in any case, I am the boss. If market demands something more and people are getting it, so be it. I mean, my attitude would be so be it. If it helps me, that like Ben's brought out, and I'm not surprised that those who were certified were better performing. I'm not surprised with that finding. So as a regulator, I would be happy if there's something in the market which is helping businesses comply better with the law. Why not? So I think that's so. On one hand, we have this problem of unauthentic certificate, huge problem in India. And on the other hand, we have, reluctance on part of regulators to recognize. I mean, in fact, food safety licensing regulations, if you go to them, there is a provision there which says that if a food business is certified to national or international standards, his license could be renewed without inspection. I wish FSI would actually operate that clause, which is not really operated. So to my message to the industry would always be, please be careful about the kind of certificates you are getting, and make sure that you get authentic certificates. And best source would be, if you want to check on your certificate. Of course, if you show me a certificate, I'll tell you right here whether it's authentic or not. But the best source would be write to NABCB and get a confirmation. And if this is scheme certificate, then write to the scheme owner and get a confirmation. Because what prevents, in fact, I was curious, I was thinking I'll ask Benz maybe privately, how does a scheme owner ensure that his certificates are not issued by somebody who's not authorized to issue? After all, tomorrow, if I issue a BRC certificate in the market, how is BRC going to catch hold of me as a certification body? That what kind of, you are not authorized, how have you issued that certificate?
Yeah,
So
so
that's
we
another-
we do get those surprises once in a while, and we've got a very experienced colleague of ours, Karen Betts, who kind of deals with this day in, day out. And it's all about staying one step ahead, or at least trying to stay one step ahead. And that's what we do at BRCGS. And I've got it in my notes. As we progress, I'll share a few things. But yes, privately, we'll have a conversation for sure, Mr. Johari.
Yeah, sure.
That's a whole lot of insight, sir. My experience, I would like to add on here, we as a consultant, we are called out for a lot of implementations and all of those. So the moment we go to our MD office and sit there and look at the wall, we already see already a ISO 22000 hanging certificate. And the question arises, you already are ISO certified. Why the hell do you need another ISO, right? Yeah, the madam usko mat dekhiye, forget about that. Don't even look at that wall. It's just for the namesake, but we really want to implement it. So, rightly said, authenticity of the certificate is something the food business operators should be aware about it before they apply for the certification. Now, moving on from authenticity, there is also the issue of the currency of the standard. My next question to you, Mr. Bent. First issue of BRCGS was published in 1998. And we are now on the 8th issue and waiting for the 9th one, which is going to be the new version coming out. How do FBOs stay current with all the changes that come along with the new versions?
Sure. So the first thing to remember is how we go through this process. The process of coming out with a new standard is a very collaborative one, where we kind of have international advisory boards, and which are getting expanded as we speak, where we've got every single stakeholder, starting from certified sites, brand owners, auditing certification bodies, auditors, who kind of come on board and talk about the various issues that are there. So from that perspective, it isn't that we're kind of sitting in a closed room and writing it on our own. While we've got very experienced technical managers, they do not have the kind of experience that 20-50 people would kind of bring to the table. So it's a very collaborative process. That's number one. Number two, when the standard is kind of ready, it's put out for comments publicly, which we then publicize at a lot of places, including our LinkedIn page, etc. And all those comments are taken in, and the relevant ones are kind of incorporated into the standards, into the draft version, or rewritten, as might be the case. And when it's published, there are a lot of webinars that we host, a lot of documentation that we go alongside. One of the key things that BRCGS prides itself in is the interpretation guideline that's launched along with every standard. So we've got two documents essentially for every standard. One is the standard document, which lays down every clause. We've got the interpretation guideline, which kind of tells them how the clause should be implemented. So for a site, it's kind of very easy. And one of the key things that I always say is, if you've got the interpretation guideline and the standard, and you're conversant with it, and you know your quality system and processes, you will be able to ask questions back to the auditor on what they're questioning you. You will be very well prepared. So from a perspective of keeping yourself updated, I think organization like yourself, Food Safety Works, when a new standard come out, you'll do a comparison document. We will do a comparison document on what the changes are. It's about reading those. Most of them put the interpretation guideline along with the standard, and all of this, a site will be able to implement all of this. Also, along with that, there is a lead time to it before the first audit happens. Generally 6 months between the standard publication and the first audit happening, which we think is good enough time for any site to kind of, or any food production unit to kind of implement those. Apart from that, we've got our own system where every site has access to something that we call Participate and Bookshop, where they can download documents, chat with our technical experts, chat with each other on Participate to kind of look for solutions to their problems and all of that stuff.
Yeah, I think that's great. Saying like, yes, you have your draft versions, consultancy happens and everything before you actually start implementing, you have the lead time of 6 months. But then, yeah, we generally get into the thing, the interpretations of auditors are different at different point of time, right? Mr. A comes and interprets the same clause in a different way, and Mr. B comes and interprets the clause in a different way. So, you know, the best part, what you mentioned is you have to be well versed with the standard. You know exactly what is the requirement, what is the interpretation is mentioning out there, and you should be able to challenge the auditor if there is a, you know, ask of a not expected requirement which has not been called out for. I think that's something for the food business operators to learn on it, saying like, be well versed with the standards that you are going ahead and implementing. So that will help you to be, you know, through and thorough with it.
Yeah, so when we kind of, especially in the Indian market, when we kind of talk to sites and we say go through a sites training or an internal auditor training before implementing, a lot of them kind of don't agree with that, but this is where it kind of comes in. You know, if you are knowledgeable enough, you will be able to kind of put across your point also. And no auditor there is kind of saying this is what it is. You know, they've got the guidelines, of course, but there are justifications that can be given on why a particular thing is applicable, not applicable, enhanced applications, etc. But I think the interpretation guidelines play a big role here, because it very, very clearly mentions how the clause will be interpreted. So, you know, have that handy, just go in front of and be confident and know your processes. I think if you put across someone like me who has no clue, if I'm working in a production unit, I'm the CEO, I don't have no clue, you put me in front of that, it won't work. But a person like Dr. Sneha will be able to tackle all the questions. And that's what it actually takes. It's knowing it inside out.
Yeah, absolutely. Saying that you handling the process, you should be the one knowing more than the auditor, because you are in and out with your processes, handling it, you know, on a daily basis. Great. Yes. So coming back to you, Dr. Sneha, what is the market perception of the standards and how much do they value these certifications?
Market perception of standards is very high. And since now we are mostly into export, since Botanic Healthcare is mostly we are exporting to other countries, when we contact any foreign customer, the first question comes up is the accreditations which you have. So when they go to a website and when they see that we are all BRCGS, FSSC 22000, everything certified, they have a sense of confidence in us. They confidence in our manufacturing processes, the food safety, and our quality assurance and quality control also. So previously, before getting BRCGS certified, we were FSSC 22000 certified, and we had already all the quality management system in place. And so for the BRCGS, we only had to tweak a little bit here and there to incorporate the food safety requirements within the framework which we had for the quality management system. So now that our customers, we are having a wide array of customers in many of the countries, and whenever they come, since getting BRCGS certified, we have implemented a lot of new things, new requirements, which as per the clauses of the BRCGS and FSSC 22000. Also, we have improved our manufacturing plan, our quality system, and we have also incorporated the HACCP. since now the food hazards has been a very important aspect among many of the new countries, among all the countries, and all the new regulations also, they are demanding for an HACCP plan. So we are having a wide, we are now after the BRCGS, we have a proper course of action, and there's a traceability from the farm level of the produce to the drum, till it reaches to the customer. We have a full traceability tool in hand. So that is a very much essential for a customer. When they ask for a product, they want right from the farm to till it reaches there, what is the traceability. So we are able to provide that to all our customers. So that has been a very good impact we have got from the BRCGS and FSSC 22000 also.
Okay, great, Sneha. So I think, yeah, beyond the regulatory, having the voluntary standards, which we have been mentioning right from the starting, always helps step ahead to move you to the global recognition and all of those. So now moving into the domain of audits. Audits are the mechanism to verify what is really happening at the business. In that context, Anil sir, what kind of systems are in place to ensure the competency and integrity of the auditor?
Well, that's a very interesting question. Auditor competence has been an issue worldwide. And I mean, I have mixed feelings on the issue, frankly. Mixed feelings because I have seen even GFSI and other scheme owners, because in IAF, when we go for IAF meetings, we run into Aerospace 9100, we run into IATF for automotive sector. All kinds of scheme owners come to IAF meetings. They rely on IAF members' accreditation for certification bodies. And there is a huge amount of focus on auditor competence. Sometimes I feel probably it's overdone because the inherent conflict of interest, which is present in certification bodies, which is that they certify and they earn money out of that certification. That is something which needs to be tackled, in my mind. There's a very interesting report on truth telling of third-party audits, which was done in Gujarat, in fact, in India, by Esther Duflo. Now she's a Nobel Prize winner. It was done before, which talked about environmental compliances. And when the payment link was broken, the quality of audits improved. So as long as industry was paying for audits, the non-compliance is far less. Once that link was taken away, and suppose the regulator starts to pay for the third-party bodies, they go and audit on my behalf and give me a report. So when the payment is protected, that in any case we'll get paid regardless of how many NCs you raise, the quality of audits increase. I think that is one thing. I am looking for a scheme owner who would actually follow this model and decide that rather than we'll approve CBs, 20 CBs in our scheme, but rather than approach CBs, you apply to the scheme owner and he allots to a CB and asks them to go and audit and how they have to improve. So that's one part of it. The problem is as much in the model that we are operating worldwide, where CBs get paid by their clients for certifying, which has an impact on their impartiality. On the other hand, quality of auditors is important because I keep struggling even today with the kind of non-conformities which are being raised. And one wonders what's going on. Because if a non-conformity was raised against me, my first question to the auditor would be, please show me the requirement against which you are raising a non-conformity. There has to be a requirement to raise a non-conformity. So many of them are raised based on your personal preferences or practices. So many of them are so badly worded. In fact, this morning I was having a discussion with a couple of people in the light of what we have read recently, that EC has blacklisted 5 organic certification bodies in India, and the need for training of inspectors and auditors of CBs and how they inspect and audit. So I think there's no doubt about it, auditor competence is important. But I think someday we should start looking at whether this entire model of certification is itself a problem, the payment part of it. And sometimes I wondered actually whether it would be worthwhile in India to try and bring in a law which would require that certification bodies are non-profit bodies and they are not profit-making bodies, to take away at least some part of this focus on earning money and generating revenue. I don't know. I'm not sure. But sometimes I wonder. So as I said, I have mixed feelings on this issue. Yes, auditor competence is important, but I mean, I went for an AS 9100 meeting some years back, and they asked, a question was asked that why is it that third-party auditors are not able to find non-compliance, which regulators are finding? And there lies the crux of this issue. So, so as I said, I have mixed feelings on this issue of auditor competence, because I think I may be a damn good auditor if my CV gives me instruction not to raise non-conformities, that auditor competence has no meaning. So we need to look at it differently, I think, on this issue.
I think greatly said, saying like, cutting down the link of the payment associated with your auditor, or making your auditors responsible for doing the marketing, because I do see a lot of certifying bodies putting the load of doing a marketing to their auditors, saying that you have to, reach this numbers of marketing, get the conversion done. So I think having an auditor, like how you have a demarcation saying like the consultant guys can't be an auditor. Similarly, I think putting a line saying that your auditor can't be a marketer or not responsible, doesn't know what is the charges and all of this. I think that is something which leads and give an independent hand to the auditor. I think that can be a place where the quality of the auditors can be better, and
I can share a couple of examples which I faced having assessed certification bodies myself. I remember having gone to a certification body where the auditors and the staff were being paid incentives for bringing in clients. Now, I know very well, knowing ISO 17021, it's not banned by the standard. Standards bans very few things. International standards will ban very few things by very nature of being international standards. But they say that you should do risk analysis and mitigate the risks and etc. So all I did was I said, okay, so you are paying some incentives. I'm sure there's a beautifully kept, maintained list of who got paid, because money matters. We know everybody keeps a very good record of money matters. So I asked for the finance guy to be brought in. And I asked him, I said, I believe that you're paying incentive to your staff for bringing in clients. So I'm sure you are maintaining a good list of which client, how much money paid, to who paid, etc. He said, yes, absolutely. I said, can you share that list? Give me a list for last 1 year. Who all have got money for incentive for bringing clients? Now, in an audit, everybody wants to prove that he's doing his job very well. So it's very easy to get some good information. So here was this finance guy who within 5 minutes was back with a printout that here is my list for last one. Then I gave it to the technical manager of the CBI. I said, now can you write down the names of auditors in front of this list? Who went for audit? He said, sure, sir. 2 minutes. Give me 2 minutes. I'll just write down. He started to write. He wrote 1, he wrote 2, he wrote 3rd. He realized he's running into trouble now, because the name was same as the person who got the incentive. So he realized after 3 names that now I am getting into trouble. The question asked, and naturally I ended up raising a major non-conformity that risk is not mitigated. It happened to be a multinational. I was doing an assessment on behalf of another accreditation body also. It was a joint assessment. So my report went to the foreign accreditation body. The foreign accreditation body landed at the headquarters of this CB and asked the same question. Are you paying your staff for bringing in clients? And where is the risk mitigation and where is the risk analysis? And they said, interestingly, as a corporate policy, no. But if you have located something in one country, India, so then naturally the assessor would ask, okay, please find out from all your outfits, because you have in 100 countries legal entities, separate legal entities holding various accreditations. Please find out from all your outfits who is having this practice. In the end, they banned this. The CB abandoned, as a corporate policy, abandoned this practice. So that is one example of this issue of incentives and marketing that you raised. Other interesting thing that I can share with you is not directly linked to marketing, but the certification bodies need to have in their application a space for revealing by the manufacturing industry. Did you employ a consultant? If you did, who was it? This is a requirement of ISO 17021. So here I was just looking through the files of, and they're related to food, I remember. And there was a consultant name popping up again and again. So I just casually asked, anybody knows here, around here, this consultant? Who is this consultant? So they said, yes, we know him. Who is he? Oh, he's husband of so-and-so. Husband of so-and-so, but who is so-and-so? So-and-so is our auditor. Ah, so great. I said, can you now show me who has audited these companies? And there it was. The so-and-so was auditing her husband's work. So these are issues very much so in the market. So more than auditor competence, actually, to my mind, a bigger issue is impartiality and conflict of interest in variety of ways, which needs to be tackled rather than auditor competence. Even a competent auditor, as I said, if I am under instruction for my CV not to raise an NC, I will not raise an NC. That's it. I'm a good auditor, but that's it. I have a job to do. So that's an issue that I would think we need to flag on impartiality certification audits.
Yeah, I think that's a lot of insight, right? So Vince, coming to you, you are someone responsible for ensuring the effective implementation of these standards. How do you ensure that the value is not diluted? What role do you as a driver of the standard have in controlling the authenticity? What do you see as the role for organizations like us in effective implementation of standards?
Yeah, so that question is a very good segue into what Mr. Johri was talking. As an organization, we're all about protecting the brand reputation. So for us, it's very important that we kind of keep a very, very eagle eye focus on what's happening in the market. And if you look at it, the consumer consciousness has changed. It's changed from just, like I mentioned earlier, getting the product at the right price to looking at quality, safety, sustainability, ethics, nutrition, and all of it. Many years ago, I did not see people looking at the nutrition fact table of any product, but now they're putting products from the same brand right next to each other and then trying to compare what does the nutrition fact table say, how much sugar do they have. So there is that increasing consciousness, which kind of also requires us to do a lot of stuff. So what we have is a 5-pillar approach to taking care of these challenges. We've got TEL BRCGS, which stands at the innermost circle, which is a confidential reporting system that we've implemented by using a tool. We've got a digital analytics tool called Horizon that we're implementing right now, which is available both to us and to sites and to brand owners, which kind of does site benchmarking for us. Auditor benchmarking for us tells us what the non-conformances are, where they're occurring, which kind of, in a manner of speaking, helps us predict what challenges we will see in the future and thus be able to take proactive steps to mitigate that. We've got compliance auditors across the whole world. In fact, we've got about 23 compliance auditors, and compliance happens to be the biggest team within the RCGS. In fact, my business development and sales and marketing team is much, much smaller than them. So that's the kind of focus that we have. And we've also, Mr. Johri mentioned the challenge that he sees around certification bodies. So delivery partners for us are an important part. We've got KPIs that are set well in advance, which they need to meet. And of course, we've got office audits that we conduct. The tool Horizon kind of goes through all the audits that are uploaded and tries to see if there are patterns that are emerging within a particular area, region, etc., or an auditor. So that's another thing that we do. And auditor competence and auditor qualification, which is based on their experience their training, exams, etc. So these are the 5 pillars that we at BRCGS work on: building brand and consumer confidence. And of course, then we keep on adding new things to the standard: food fraud, food defense, traceability, etc., which kind of makes it much more better for us to keep a grip on what's happening and kind of keep ahead of the changes that are happening.
That's great to know. You guys have the 5 pillar and a systematic way to make sure the audits that are happening, the authenticity of the certification that's been issued in the name of BRCGS and all of those. Yeah.
Sorry, just one more point here, which I missed out, was as soon as a certificate is issued, it goes live on the BRCGS directory. Now we've got a portal called directory.brcgs where anyone can go in and verify a certificate. All they need is the BRCGS site code of that particular manufacturing unit, which is available on the certificate. And it dynamically gives you live data on when it was certified, where is it located, who are the commercial contacts, etc. So for any brand owner or any sourcing organization that's kind of looking at sourcing, I think the first pit stop, as soon as they see the certificate from the supplier, should be to go onto the directory. I also know other standard owners also do the same thing. So one of the key things that I would encourage anybody from even as a site manufacturing unit who are receiving the certificate is to first go and check there, is my name there or not? Because then that would kind of give you the, then you can quickly respond if your name is not reflecting there. So, yeah.
So
and we operate in, sorry,
go ahead.
We operate in 130 countries with more than 30,000 certified sites. It's not possible to, kind of go back to every single question and answer them when it comes out to authenticity. But this is like a tool that's available for everyone. Immediately go check, and you've got an understanding.
I think that's a great insight for the FBOs. When you are getting certified, go ahead, go to the directory, look at it, saying whether your name is up there or not. So that's a fantastic way of checking the authenticity yourself, because you as a FBO have already spent that amount of money, right, to get yourself up there with the GFSI standard. So yeah, that's a great thing to do. So coming back to you, yes, sir.
Just to add, since Ben's mentioned this, IAF has also started an IAF search database, which is voluntary, but that's another good step. That there is for example, today there is no directory of certificates. How many ISO 22000 certificates have been issued in any country? We have no directory at all. So this IAF move to have an IAF search directory. Let's see how it operates. Early days, but yes, for all food businesses, they ought to go to that directory and see if their certificate is there. And if it's not there, ask their CB why it's not there. Because if there's a global directory, I would like to be there in that global directory.
Exactly. Yes. So it gives you also, a big market as a FBO. Yes. Any supplier globally can look for that item. And then if you're there in the directory, you're already on there, you have moved a step ahead, right? So that helps you in the business perspective as well. Yeah. So coming to you, Dr. Sneha, you have, like, as I mentioned earlier, you have different standards, right? How difficult are these standards to implement and follow? As an implementer, what is your take on that?
We have implemented the standards in like 4 phases. In the first phase, we have the senior management commitment. We obtain the full support of the management team. They also help us in getting a particular certification for the company. And in the second phase, we have the quality training. In the quality training part, we train the new culture regarding with any particular certification body. We train we increase an awareness among our employees towards the importance of the new standards, how to follow it, and such things. So we use some visual aids like a presentation type of things for the employees to create an awareness on how the standards needs to be followed. And in the third phase, we have the implementation of the standards. So the new quality procedures which are prescribed by a particular standard, like now we had the BRCGS. So we incorporate the new quality procedures to our existing framework of the quality management. And we try to ingrain it into our employees' daily habits so that on a long go, it becomes a part of their daily routine, the quality procedures. And in the fourth phase, we have the quality management. We have a system in place which can track down the daily impact of the quality system which we are following. Like we do inter-department audits so that we have a system in place for continuous improvement for each departments, so that we try to make the food standards, whatever it is in place, like the FRC, BRCGS or the FSSC 22000, everything, we see to that we are up to the standard to keep that.
So basically, yes, if I have to wrap up what Dr. Sneha had to say is the PDCA cycle is something which they have implemented, right? They have put into force, saying like while they were looking at standard implementation, the senior management commitment, then comes your training the folks, helping them to implement, and then again acting back with your audits, verifications, and then coming back again to the whole cycle again. Yeah. So that's a great way of implementing the standards that you have right now already implemented. So talking about the type of business, we see that the standards are more tuned for our packed foods, right? While in India, we still are a whole lot of fresh food business. Now, FSSAI has initiative like hygiene rating and ERC, Eat Right Campus Awards for cafeterias, jails, and campuses, which have been, sir, Anil sir, you have been associated with FSSAI for a long time. So what is your take on the systems like this? Will it make easier for smaller businesses to implement the requirements and improve the quality of implementation?
See, I can certainly say that one of the advantages of having standards and certification is to small businesses. Otherwise, a product sells on brand and on the marketing muscle of a business. Small business can't afford that. I know from my own experience of 25, 26 years in BIS, how ISI mark helped a small business to claim that he complies with an Indian standard as much as a big business was claiming. So to that extent, I believe that standards and certification help small businesses more than they help the big businesses, because small businesses can claim that they are complying with the same standards which the big businesses are complying with. So to that extent, I'm all for standards and certification. But as I said, the food is highly regulated, and our first priority should be to have a good, robust food regulatory system, and its regulations are implemented properly. I remember in 2014, when this new government came in, and the then railway budget, there used to be a railway budget in those days, an announcement was made, and I was listening to that without having been consulted at all in the budget speech, that railways would now rely on third-party bodies accredited by NABCB for hygiene audits. Shortly thereafter, I got a call from railways to go and meet them and explain to them how the system works. And they were talking in terms of ISO 20000, etc. And my advice was, please, for God's sake, first Schedule 4. Let's get all your kitchens, base kitchens, whoever you are talking of, or people who are supplying food at railway stations, running canteens or food eateries. First, please check them for Schedule 4. Let them come to that basic requirement of the law, meet that, and then we'll think about who can go for ISO 20000, all fancy names. So to me, in a country like India, I think the task of implementing regulations properly itself is huge enough, and that is something that should take priority even with consultants. I mean, consultants' knowledge of regulations, I'm sorry to say, is not very great. The management systems auditors' knowledge of regulations is also not very great. And some of them think, what have we got to do with regulations? It's a regulator's job to enforce regulations. What's our So that's another weak area where I mean we need to work at. In fact, I started an interaction in NABC with consultants, management system consultants. Although we don't directly benefit from them, they help clients get certified by certification bodies who are accredited by us. Unlike, say, in NABL or NABH, where consultants help them get accredited by NABH or NABL directly. In our case, it's not so. And yet we did start an interaction with consultants. I'm glad to say that consultants responded. Today, we run a WhatsApp group of about 250 consultants who are on that. One of the more dynamic sections of consultants gone ahead and created an association, which is what I have been pushing. Create an association, have a formal voice. Why wouldn't there be, when there are association of certification bodies around the world who sit in IAF, why not an association of consultants which also sits on these fora and presents the industry viewpoint? So they have gone ahead and created an association called Chennai Consultants Consortium of Chennai, based in Chennai, including food safety management system. So I think we need, to me, voluntary certifications. I mean, I always say, minimum standards to be imposed by law, voluntary certification for excellence. This is the approach we should follow. And to that extent, the voluntary certifications are welcome by FSSAI or anybody else.
That's great. So coming back to you, Mr. Benz, does BRCGS also have simplified standards? Like we know with the developing country, unorganized sector, other GFSI recognized, standards are breaking down their implementation for the, in different steps. So as BRCGS, are you guys also, planning or having simplified standards or stepwise implementation for small businesses?
Yes, we've had that for a few years. It's called the BRCGS Start. It's basically aimed at food organizations that are just starting off or don't have the need to implement the full standard. So that's what it is for. And it works at two levels. One is BRCGS Start Basic, which is at a bare minimum level, and BRCGS Start Intermediate, which is at a secondary level, and then comes the full standard, which is the food standard. So organizations can use this stepping stone approach to kind of move into the full standard. So you start off with a Start Basic. There is no specific time limit, but 6 months to a year, to whenever they're comfortable with, move on to the Start Intermediate, and from there move on to the full standard. And that kind of tells the buyer or the brand owner or whoever is manufacturing that they're kind of on that journey. So we've seen the developing world implement this a lot. In India, not so much, but places like Latin America, we've got organizations like Ahol Delhaize that are supporting this. We've got Subway that's supporting this. So there's a lot of work happening with a lot of brand owners on this.
That's really good.
In fact, when we developed Good Agricultural Practices Standard in QCI, I remember having gone to Global Gap office and met Global Gap chief. And it was his suggestion that in a country like India, you might need a lesser standard to begin with, to begin the journey. And then I came back and I spoke to the then chairman of FSSAI, who supported that. I said, while agriculture is not under your domain, the food businesses that you regulate and you are imposing requirements which impact directly on the kind of produce they are getting as raw material. So at least as a voluntary effort, why don't you introduce a good agricultural practice system? Which he agreed, and we drafted and INDGAP certification scheme, which had 2 levels, INDGAP Basic and INDGAP Premium. And the idea was that INDGAP Premium will benchmark with Global Gap and GFSI, as the case may be, while INDGAP Basic could be a stepping stone. Same thing we did. I think Sneha might be interested because she's, as you said, she's in Ayurvedic area also. When we were asked to design a scheme for Ayurvedic products, Ayush products, a voluntary certification scheme, we created 2 levels, Ayush Standard Mark and Ayush Premium Mark. And Ayush Premium Mark was based on WHO GMP and contaminant requirements which are internationally acceptable. And Ayush Standard Mark was based barely on regulatory requirements under Drugs and Cosmetics Act. So what Ben said, I endorse that. That the approach to the journey of quality should be phased out in a country like India, where we have lot of not a lot of unorganized businesses. We have a lot of small and tiny and micro businesses. We need to initiate them into that journey. But of course, when it comes to safety, whether it's drugs or food, the minimum standards have to be by law. You can't compromise safety. But beyond that journey, there should be this kind of phased journey, which should be possible to excellence. So I endorse what Benz was saying.
Right. Absolutely. So adding to what Benz and Sir had to say, saying like my experience out here, just to add on to it, I was conducting this post-stack training on advanced catering, and it was the a lot of folks from the restaurant industry. And generally, as a practice, what they do is they for the cooking they use the canned water, but for washing their hands or the utensils, they end up using the tap water. And they're not too sure whether the water is potable or not. So we just happened to get into a conversation saying like, no, that water also needs to be potable. And one gentleman comes up saying like, so who is supposed to provide us with the potable water? Are we responsible for that, to handle the water which we are having to be potable? Or can we go to the government and ask for it? I said, absolutely, go ahead, and then whatever possible, I will back you up. But then, yes, the complete water. So the awareness, in general, in the industry is so low, that we have a long way definitely to work on the food safety, I think. Yeah, so stepwise, the journey that you guys have been mentioning is very critical for, country like India that we are in, with a lot of unorganized sectors. Yep. So, final question to you, Dr. Sneha. Any advice you would like to give the FBOs who might be sitting on the fence or starting their journey to implement systems and standards?
Implementing the systems and standards is very essential. So we, as a herbal extract manufacturing company, what we can tell you as the 2 main benefits which we have got in implementing the standards is, one is traceability, and right from the farm level, we have organic certifications of US, EU organic, and NPO and NOP of India also. So we obtain like the transfer certificates from the traceability tools we have. And second one is an efficient management of a crisis. When we have a particular issue comes up, there is an effective management can be done when we have a standards and system in place. And last but not least point is, it can definitely keep you ahead, like a very large steps ahead of all of your customers and your your competitors. It can implementing the standards, and especially now we have implemented the BRCGS, we are very much ahead of our competitors. So that's what I wanted to convey.
Thank you, Dr. Sneha. Thank you for the candid conversation that we all had. Now we will take some questions. I think I don't see too many, but then if you guys who are listening on to the conversation, please go ahead and type in your questions. Please do put the panelist name so that, we can address it to the right person on our panel. We have a question out here. So I think that's for Ben's. Nisha Naureen, she has a question for you saying, how and where can I do BRCGS training and improve my knowledge? I'm a fresher in Masters Food Tech.
Sure. So all our trainings are listed online, and we kind of have a virtual and an on-site approach to training. So she can enroll in one of the ones which are happening close to wherever she is, or in the city that she's in, or she can take one of the virtual ones. And if she wants, she can get in touch with me on LinkedIn. We're more than happy to kind of guide her to the right person.
Yeah, I think to add on to that, one is the training, another one is the hands-on. If you can get an internship, for yourself, doing it for a BRCGS, maybe you can reach out to Dr. Sneha. If she has a position for her internship at her place, maybe you'll get a hands-on experience out there.
Or does BRCGS, encourage its certified clients to offer internship as a I mean, this could be something that could be tried.
Yes. So we've never done this, but that's
for the benefit,
very good.
For the benefit of future generation, a program by BRCGS on internship in certified businesses might just be a good idea.
Sure. Yes. No, that's a wonderful idea. So we've got something called the BRCGS Professionals, which is for the people who are working within BRCGS certified sites, wherein it's a continuous development program where they earn points for various things, including attending trainings, industry conferences, reading articles and writing synopses or publishing articles, etc. So they every year earn certain points, which then enable them to keep the professional tag on. So that's something that we're doing. But yes, very good idea, Mr. Johri, that we should kind of look at implementing it at the college or university levels so that the students kind of benefit from it, and we could definitely bring in an element of internship into it. I'll definitely take that back to the team.
Yeah, we had a session yesterday, careers in food safety, and I think the freshers are really hungry to get the knowledge and all of those. I think that would be a great initiative. Yeah. Another question again to you, Mr. Bench. IFS has started saying, like, if you are conducting an audit at a site, the 50% of your time has to be on the process, production, and all of those. Are you guys also planning something similar to that?
Well, we've been doing that for decades now. So for the longest time, we've had the requirement that the auditor spends more than 50% of their time on the shop floor. And that's in every auditor, when they undergo the training, is all told very clearly about it. So I would say with a certain amount of confidence that we're probably pioneers in doing that. And not only that, but also the stuff around food defense, food fraud, traceability, and now food safety culture, where we've been talking about stuff like food safety culture for a few years now. And now EU has actually gone ahead and implemented it as a law. So yeah, we already have that.
Absolutely. I think, starting ahead always gives you a, good lead. So you guys started in 1998 with your first, issue. So that definitely gives you a head start and going ahead. And definitely, as you also mentioned, saying like, when there was a worldwide audit conducted, 900 of the compliances, like the highest one was from the BRCGS compliant industry. So I think that's a good positive note, right? We would like to, so we do not have any other questions out there with us, and we would like to close this session with some quick final remarks. First off, from Anil, sir.
Well, as I said that, to me, the important thing is, as a food business, first look at the law. Please comply with the law. Then look very carefully at the options that you have, the market that you want to access, because there is multiplicity of standards and certifications. And I remember listening to one food business operator, I think it was in New Zealand, who said, You said something about half of my time is spent on facing audits. So I don't know. I was listening to Sneha and all the certifications that they hold, and I was wondering how much time they spend in a year facing audits, which is another issue that businesses will face if there are multiple markets, multiple voluntary standards. So one has to be smart at choosing the right standards, which will give them access to the largest market rather than end up with multiple certifications. So my final thoughts would be, please focus on complying with the law first. Look at voluntary certifications. They are good for you. They are good for access to certain markets, especially when you're in exports. And all the best to you.
I think that's definitely the point to take away from this conversation, saying like comply with the law. Yes, because FSSAI, we pretty much have a detailed, things out there. The only thing is how to figure it out, what is the right thing that you need to know, do. And also with a lot of amendments coming every day, you have to be on your toes to understand what is applicable for your industry and apply that. Right, the others. So if you have the requirements by the country set at a place, the other things are just the cushion on top of it to work on it slowly. Yeah. Mr. Benj, what would you like to add to what Sir had to say?
Sure. Just one thing that we need to think of standards as something that kind of support the production process and enable and enhance the food safety aspect of it. What we do is we look at the audit as an exam, whereas we should look at an audit as a proactive visit to a doctor, where we're going to just check what potentially could be problems in the future. And that's how we should look at audits. And in doing so, I think what we need is, number one, is senior management commitment and involvement. A lot of times they will commit but not get involved, and that sends out a very, very different message versus when the senior management is on the floor asking questions, is well conversed with the standard itself that they're implementing. And this goes across anything that they're doing in the quality space. The other is in terms of creating cross-functional teams, because the only way to implement a standard is to kind of have everybody involved. A lot of times we ignore people in finance, we ignore people in HR, etc., but that shouldn't be the case. It's not production, or it's not the floor factory floor driven exercise. It's from across everyone. And the third most important thing is get everybody trained. So especially the implementing team of these cross-functional people need to be trained. That's number one. But the training needs to percolate down in some sort of form to others so that they also know what's happening. And keep an eye on the future. Where is it that you want to go? Like Mr. Johri mentioned, there's no use of taking on a standard if that's not the way you want to go, if that it doesn't benefit you. The conversation I have with food or any site manufacturing unit is, if you want it for the world, don't take it. It doesn't benefit. Take it because you really want to implement it. And even if you fail a couple of times, it's fine. You're just learning. Every failure, the problem is we treat failure as failure, but failure is essentially teaching you something, and take that out and implement it and make sure that the next time the audit happens, it is not the same ones that you're kind of, being called out on. So that's what would be my parting thoughts.
Yeah, I think that's great. Yes. So senior management, definitely a commitment required. You need to have everybody. It's not a single person job. So generally when you do go through these audits, you will see is only the food safety team leader taking the auditor around, handling the documents. That should not be the case, like how Ben's mentioned. It should be a cross-functional activity wherein everybody is responsible for the food safety and understands their job and responsibility out there, right? So coming to you, Dr. Sneha, your last bit.
How Sir has mentioned before, like how we have so much certificates and accreditations in our website. So for us, each audit, it has been a platform to improve our standards. And our manufacturing, the process, our site, in the plan itself. And for each audit, we have learned a few very, very good lessons so that we can improve our system more and more. And now that from right from the basic CGMB and ISO, kosher and halal, now that we have reached to BRCGS, we have the best quality standards in place, and the best manufacturing unit has been set up due to this, due to the our quality management system, which has been behind every department, actually each and every department, so that all the procedures and all the quality system has been percolated down to all the departments. So we work as a whole team, like the whole company works as a team for each audit. So, and to make up to the standards. So that has to be done. It is not the particular standards, or keeping up a standard should not be confined to particular department. It should be working as like a whole team, the whole company, right from the senior management to all the departments. So that has to be a main key point in managing every standard.
Great. Yep. So it has been a complete insight as from the accreditation point of view, from the standard point of view, and from the implementation point of view. So thank you, everyone. It has been an absolute pleasure speaking to all of you. I'm sure our viewers would also have gained more insights and understanding on the standards and how important is it for the production units. So the major takeaways from the conversation, if I have to take it from the last wrap up: comply with the law, make sure you have a proper senior management commitment, have the cross-functional team working towards implementation, make sure the trainings are robust enough. And as we continue with our monthly webinar series, do share your feedback on any topics that you would like us to cover. Please do send us the email on our email ID, feedback@foodsafetyworks.in. To stay updated on our conversations, please do subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can also follow us on FB, LinkedIn, Instagram, and Twitter, and our handle is Food Safety Works. We regularly share news and insights about what is going in the world of food safety. As a company, we are committed to providing end-to-end solutions for food safety. We also conduct regular online trainings on various topics, including FOSTAC trainings as per FSSAI mandate. To know more on how we can help you on your journey, please visit our website, www.foodsafetyworks.com, and also subscribe to our newsletter. Thank you once again for joining. Have a wonderful day, and wishing you all safe times ahead, and wishing you all a happy Dasera.
Thank you, Sarika. It was a pleasure being here.
Yeah, thanks, Sarika. It's great to be here. And I hope those who listen to all this conversation would benefit from what we talked about today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Ben.
Yeah.
Thank you.